Hi, how are you guys? I hope you're alright. My name is Clara if you're new, and I talk about books in English and in Spanish in this channel that is called The Ink Path. You have different playlists in different languages, so you can select which video do you want to watch, and that's how things work here. If you are new, you will probably know that I love chatting about books. And in today's video, we are going to talk about one short book and 4 short stories that I've read in 2020 that I think they can combine very well. My idea was to actually add this to last week's video. However, it was already very long, so I thought I could split it in two. And although originally I was going only to talk about the 4 short stories, I have an audiobook format of a book, but it's very slim. So I thought I could actually sit down and chat about it here because, it's quicker that way. Having said that, let's start with the video, okay? Well, starting with the short book that I want to mention, in this year, in the past month or the past 2 months, I've read, I listened to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by J.K. Rowling in audiobook format. Now, this was a reread because I have the original Spanish edition of that book, that one with the side notes done by Harry, Ron, and Hermione, regarding the subject and the classmates that they had on that subject. However, when my English library uh, sent me an email saying that they had an audiobook format of that book read by Eddie Ramayan, who portrays in the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, he portrays the proper author of said textbook. I decided to give it a go. In this small book, we have a little bit of a manual, sort of, kind of, yeah, it's a textbook actually that goes through the creatures that we have in the wizarding world. Creatures that maybe we read and saw in the films, or maybe we haven't discovered yet visually on the films. So this is a little bit of a kind of guide through the species of magical creatures, going from the A to the Z. This was a very interesting read because it's been a while since I don't read the J.K. Rowling books. However, I find that it was a little bit strange to listen to a textbook in a really long time. I love the idea of having these special effects and this kind of guide format of the text. So you had, imagine you're on the werewolf entry and you can listen the werewolf howling and being aggressive or not. And that was very, very scary, especially in the werewolf section. However, I find it that the beginning of the story, which is a little bit more of how the Wizarding world decided to classify people and a species of creatures through the years was more kind of intriguing than the proper A to Z classification. I say this because although I enjoy the experience, I find myself a little bit not bored, but kind of disinterested. I love this story or this short book when I first read it because we were in the kind of boom of Harry Potter. The saga of books was not yet finished. I don't remember if the films were out back then. So I really love the book. It's just that when I was listening to it, although Eddie Ramayan did a great job, and I love, as I said before, the kind of historical parts and the sound effects, I had the feeling that it was just a guide and it is. And I thought that I would probably enjoy more having the proper books having or being read to me. The first short story that I read was Sanil by Sofia Saurin, who is a Spanish author, and I got to her story because I found her on YouTube. Oh, no, not on YouTube, on Twitter. And she was talking about this story that is set in the world of the Fae, and I decided to give it a go. I'm not good with short stories, but I was in the mood for like shorter kind of, you know, short tales to be entertained. In Sanil, which is the name of the short story, we met Aurora, who travels with her kind of legal guardian from several places. They are kind of a nomad family because of his kind of work, and they end up living in a place near a forest, kind of almost like an old building. And when they establish there in this tiny village at the edge of a forest, at the edge of the village, they establish there very isolated from the rest of the village and all. And when they establish there, she actually feels a presence in the house, and she decides to follow them. When she follows this kind of a spectral light figure, she ends up going into the forest, and when she does, she enters in the world of the Fae. So this leads to kind of a trickier situation in which she met someone in that forest, and she is tricked into getting trapped in there. I'm not going to say much, but in this short story, the author, Sophia, she managed to treat or to deal with the Fae, not in a kind of fairy tale-esque Peter Pan approach, but in more folklore, like old-fashioned folklore approach, where you never know if the Fae are good or bad, but you know that they are eerie, and you shouldn't trust them. You shouldn't eat what they offer, and you shouldn't actually make deals with the Fae. I have a lot of experience with the Fae this last month, so I love that aspect of the tale. I love that there's a female romance, or at least the beginning of a romance in this story as well, which I was not expecting, but diversity is a good thing. It's a really good thing. The weird, or I think not weird, the less attractive part of the tale is that when I was getting used to the style and I was getting interested in the plot, the short story ended. I have the feeling, and it's something I already said before, that short stories are not for me because I'm always left wanting for more. So although I love the kind of ambience of the story, I love the world of the Fae and how it's intertwined with Aurora's world, I have this kind of need to be longer so I can explore certain elements of the story that are left there, like unfinished, or at least unfinished on my or under my own perspective. Other than that, I believe Sophia managed to create a quite interesting story, a story that combines several kind of aspects, as I said, but with a kind of poetical approach to it, which was good. And it left me, although I give it 3 stars, it left me wanting for more. Before I jump into the next short story, I forgot to say that Sanil is available in the platform of kind of digital books and digital literary content called Lectu. Sanil and the other short stories that I'm going to mention apart from this moment on, are only available in Spanish, but I don't think that the level of difficulty in the language are very hard. Maybe in this one and in Andreas Tome's one are the easiest, because the other two are a little bit more specific of time period, and maybe that's hard to understand. The next short story that I want to mention is Una Flor de Sangre by Sonia Lerones. Una Flor de Sangre is a short story that Sonia published in this platform, and she did it. She decided to put it like on social payment type of approach, which means that you can pay whatever you want, and if you can't give money in exchange of the short story, you can give advertisement to the story. So you can say on Twitter or on other kind of social media that you are actually downloading that story, so it reaches more people if they want to read it. In this story, Sonia takes us to the Imperial Japan, where the samurais are still working, and the story is the story of two of them who have to focus or to be very, very aware of impending betrayal that is going to happen in the ranks of that specific army. So this leads to a very, very kind of bloody ending, but I love how this constant tension is intertwined with the delicacy of, or the delicate way of exploring feelings and relationships and love, while being very graphic and you feeling what is going to happen and that it's going to end very badly. What I love the most about this story is how Sonia is able to adapt her writing style, which is poetically enough, to the setting and the time period that she chooses to develop the story, which means that this short story in particular, the writing style, like, it's very, very influenced by the Japanese literature tradition, which is very kind of slow paced and very, very flowery and very, very poetically crafted. Also, this story is divided in 3 parts, and each and every part has like a haiku, which is a traditional poem, a traditional poem in the Japanese culture. I know a little bit about haikus because when I did a master in creative writing, we were in the poetry class, which was one of my favorite classes. We were asked to study haikus and to produce haikus of our own. And haikus are very, very complicated because it's not, they don't measure the rhyme in the way we do, and also the themes explored and in each and every line, which are normally 3, are very, very different from one another. So one it's to do with the nature, one's to do with the feeling or the sentiment, and one it's a very complicated, very different way to do poetry than in the kind of European or the Occidental, the Western approach to it. And it's very hard, and these ones shown in the short story are of Sonia's creation, which is even more outstanding. The next short story that I have to talk to you about is Haiku para un hijo muerto by Andrea Tomé, who is a Spanish author, and she published this this short story in the same format and in the same platform as Sonia did. And in this story, Andrea uh, takes the reader to the tsunami that happened in 2011, I believe, and it sets in somewhere around Japan, I think, and yeah, I think it's set in Japan as well. So this is a story, a very short story about grief, about shock, and about clinging to the people you have near when something as catastrophic, as unexpected as this event strikes. This is about the shock, about the importance of family, about what happens in the aftermath. So this was a tricky story for me to read. In the same vein as Sonia Lerone's story, she is able to, being a contemporary story in this case, she's able to transplant that kind of literary heritage of the Japanese culture in literature. This idea of being very poetic and slow paced, but very rich at the same time, but in a contemporary format, in a contemporary story. This was a complicated story for me to read because, as I said before, it deals with grief and with shock, and those are two emotions that I had to explore and to live in certain aspects of my life. And I remember shock as something I wish I hadn't had to experience it. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I wish you never had to go through shock. And I was very happy and very surprised to see this feeling being so well depicted. This kind of idea of being so unattached with your own body, with your own reality, as if you're watching this scene happening from afar, as it is not your body or your life or your own context. So this feeling of being in an outer place, watching something happening to you while being very, very slowly happening, it's really weird, and it's very, very heartbreaking when that breaks and you are again in control, because all the feelings rush to you, all the feelings that you were supposed to be feeling in the previous moments where you feel numb and disconnected, they rush to you and through you, and it's not a good feeling. But it was really interesting to see it so well depicted in the story. So good, 5 points to Andrea for that. I love this story, although I have the feeling that I would have loved it more if it was longer, if it has a little bit more of a space to breathe. But I really like it, and I feel it's very brave to take a very close historical event to be the setting for a story. Mainly because I believe I haven't heard or I haven't read a fiction story, novel or short story, I don't care, a fiction story set in the proper tsunami or in the proper earthquake that afterwards came with the tsunami, before the tsunami came, sorry. And I love it. I've seen it in films, but I haven't seen it in literature, and it's quite heartbreaking, but new and very well transported or moved into the pages. Lastly, the last short story that I read and I adore, I gave it. We're going to pause. I gave Andres Tome's short story three stars. I like it, and I feel the thought and all the elements that I highlighted here And then I read Valeria Figure by Maria Tenatena, which is a retelling of the myth of Pandora. Pandora is a Greek mythological character, a human character within the Greek myths, that she marries off to, I don't remember who was the husband, and she is given by the gods. She's given a box, and she's told not to open said box. Obviously, she opens it. So this is the story of Pandora since the moment she was created to set a moment when she opened the box, and all the ills of the world, all the bad things of the world go free and roam the world, and things get complicated. I love this because it's the first time Pandora tells the story from the moment she's born, and all the pressure that she has from the gods, because her destiny is already foretold. She already knows what she has to do. However, she doesn't know how it's going to feel or when it's going to be like the moment. And I love how, in a similar vein to CSA by Madeline Miller, she learns from the world and she tries to rebel to or against the gods to be free of the role that she's been given when she clearly doesn't want said role. And I love how the story unfolds and she changes, and when she does, even though she cannot change what is going to happen, she deals with the events in a very mature way, in a very grown up way. And I love how feminist actually Pandora is here. I love that. I love the way of storytelling that Marina selected, because it's very in a similar vein to Sonia and Andrea. She managed to take all that heritage of literature, of the myths, so you have all this slow pace, very flowery, very metaphorical way of telling the story. For example, having this fixation with certain aspect of Pandora as to be the aspect that defines her, in the same way that Homero did with the Iliad and the Odyssey. But she also twists the story a little bit and gives it a very contemporary approach to it and a very feminist approach, while being respectful with the storytelling techniques that she's developing, and mix those ideas or three ideas in the story to make it more accessible and yet respectful to the techniques. And I love it. I adore this story. Well, this is it. This is the end of my multi-review dedicated more or less to short stories. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you tell me down below which short stories have you read, if you read any, or if you have other short story recommendations you want to throw my way. See you next week, okay? Bye!